Hi, I'm Sarah Gonzalez. Welcome to the news and why it matters. Glenn, what was the top story for you?
I'm in a debate. There's something very important, Asia Bibi, and the other story that I think is really profound is the death of Stanley. Happened today.
All right, Stu.
Apparently a segment on Saturday Night Live aired, and it was actually good. We're going to cover that.
I saw that one.
The one.
One.
Just the one.
Just the one.
Not the one with John Belushi.
And I should say, no, it's newer.
A new one, yeah.
I will say too, and it wasn't a full segment. It was just a part of a segment, but it was good.
Yeah. All right, Jason.
The Dallas Cowboys utterly just dominated and annihilated the Philadelphia Eagles.
Yeah,
pretty much.
it was painful, wasn't it?
It was painful to watch for them and for all the friends and coworkers I might have that support the Eagles.
No defense to this.
No, in all seriousness, I'm very, very concerned with the nation of Israel. A lot of troubling things happening, and especially over the past 2 or 3 days. Including right now, record amounts of activity. So go into that.
Okay. Before we do that, want to thank our sponsor, iTarget Pro. I'm having so much fun with my iTarget Pro since I've gotten it. And honestly, it really does. I'm getting into more of a rhythm with pulling the trigger because I have a long pull. I have a 380, and it's a long pull, so it takes some practice.
Is it 380 semi-automatic, or is it?
Yes. Yeah. So, and again, I think I've told the story on air before, but I used to, whenever I went shooting and I passed my test and everything, I was a terrible shot, and I realized it was because I was using the wrong eye. Like someone told me the quiz that you do to yourself to figure out if you're right or left eye dominant, and I did it wrong, and so I was shooting like way off to the side. So I've corrected that now, and I'm actually quite good.
Yeah, trigger control is so important to get down. It's everything, and really the only way that you can do it before iTarget Pro was to either go to the range, spend tons and tons of money, really hundreds of dollars on rounds and rounds of ammunition, or to do it the old school way, like my grandpa taught me, where you put like a little penny on the end of the barrel and just squeeze it. If the penny moves, then your trigger control's off. You don't have to do that anymore with iTarget Pro.
Wow, I didn't even know about that.
Yeah, that's how we did it back in my day.
Well, we have a way cooler way to do it.
You use a quarter now.
Yeah.
But seriously, if you're a gun person, you should have this. You can save tons of money on ammunition and on gun range fees, and also you can improve your accuracy and skill. Go to itargetpro.com and use promo code TheNewsAndWhyItMatters for free shipping and 10% off. Go there now. You can train at home. Glenn.
Which do you want?
I mean, we can do both.
All right, so let me start with the news one, because I think this is really important.
Okay.
Asia Bibi, this is a woman. 9 years ago, she was a migrant worker, and she was just working in the field. She was just picking, I don't know, fruit or whatever they grow in Pakistan. She's a Christian, and her boss said, "Go get some water." She did. 2 Muslim women said, "I'm not drinking out of anything that a Christian handed to me." An argument ensued. They claimed that she then insulted the Prophet Muhammad. She went to court. There was no evidence. She's been in prison for 9 years awaiting the death penalty. So the Supreme Court of Pakistan just ruled and said, hey, maybe not so much. Let's let her go. Good ruling. Not to the people on the streets. The people on the streets have gone wild. I don't know if we have any of the footage, but it is ugly, ugly, ugly on the streets.
Thousands.
Yeah, thousands of people protesting. And they're shouting, execute her, execute her. I mean, it's crucify. It really is very Christ.
And we have it.
Go ahead, play a little bit of that. Look at that. And you can see all the women and children in there. Oh no, it must be another caravan.
That's insane. That's thousands of people calling for basically the crucifixion of a woman. Not the crucifixion, but the execution of a woman. That's insane.
So nobody's really paying attention to this. In my opinion, it's not getting enough play. She applied for refugee status in the United Kingdom, and the United Kingdom, in some BS double speak for politicians, said, well, we're worried that bringing you in might cause some trouble on the streets with certain segments of our society. Really? No, here's what you're afraid of. You're afraid that the people that you've let in and told everybody is totally fine, the Islamicists, not the Muslims, the Islamicists will take to the streets and they will cause all kinds of riot and bloodshed on the streets, and you can no longer control it. You're cowards. The UK is the first time I've ever seen them act as cowards. They stood up to Vladimir Putin in the last year and a half. They're being cowards now. And we have got to get our president to support refugee status for her here. We have to get Congress to move on this. She could be dead by the end of the week because look how she's living. Look what she's surrounded by.
Such an incredible indictment against their open border policies and how they've handled immigration. Because let's say that they do have tons and tons of riots and it gets out of control. That right there proves that that everything they've been doing with the refugees and the immigration stuff is wrong. Now let's say that she does go there. They give her asylum. There's no riots, but something tragically happens to her. Again, the Islamists actually come for her. There's an attack or something like that. Again, they look bad. It's an indictment on them. They have to agree, they have to basically come clean and basically admit in the public view that yes, what we're doing is wrong. How we've been handling this entire situation is wrong.
Not working.
And it's what's so incredible is they still are not coming clean about the Muslim Islamicist sex ring, where they are grooming these children, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years old, to be sex toys. And nobody is saying anything about it. It is the largest sex ring, I think, in Western history. And it's pretty much out in the open. Everybody kind of knows what's going on, but people will say, my daughter was just taken, she was abused, they're after her, blah, 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 here are the people. And the police will say, sorry, there's nothing we can do about it.
Because of political correctness?
Because of political correctness. They know that if they start pulling at the fabric of this, it will just set the streets on fire. And because of political correctness, they have so much power now. England is lost. If you look at this story, read it that way. They have boxed themselves into a corner to where they don't have the courage to fight their way out of it. They're lost. Yeah. They're lost.
What's amazing to me is like this. I can't help but kind of think back to first century, in the Middle East, right when the apostles
were.
That's
where I was going to go. Darn it, you're stealing my point again.
I was going 3rd century BCE.
Oh, okay, yeah, no.
We'll stay in the first century.
All right, go ahead.
But the crucifixion against Christians is exploding not just in this area, or let's say in the Roman lands. It's all over the country, or all over the world right now. And in many places that aren't even getting a lot of headlines, a lot of media coverage. Places like in Burma, Mercury One's helping out there. Places in Burma where you don't ever hear about the Christians that are getting wholesale slaughtered in Burma. It's genocide. All you hear about is the Rohingya. Why? Why do you just hear about the Rohingya? That made national news. It was all over the place. You very rarely hear about the Caravan and the Christian minority that's in Burma. Very rarely ever hear about it.
If we don't stand up now, it's going to be too late. We've already lost Europe. We've lost now the United Kingdom. If they're afraid of bringing one woman in who has paid more than a price for bringing a Muslim woman the wrong kind of water, one that had been touched by a Christian, if they aren't willing to bring that woman in and stand up for her, if we don't stand up, no one will. I mean, this story goes to show how critical it is that America finds its place in the world, because they're scooping up Christians in China, Muslims in China. They're doing it in Pakistan, Afghanistan, all throughout the Middle East, all throughout Africa, and now in Europe. It has just been permeated with Islamists where no one is willing to speak.
I would say too. I would agree that they have not handled the situation well. That's led to this point in their country, but that does not make your decision for you, and that's the part that disturbs me the most. I mean, probably Great Britain's, maybe their greatest moment was after they didn't handle a situation very well, and had major threats of attack from a little country named Germany, and decided to take a stand anyway for what was right. I mean, this is what's the situation is. Being threatened, even if attacks are imminent, right? Being threatened by terrorists threatening to attack people in your country is not a reason to not stand up for the right thing. But you have to do that whether you've made mistakes in the past on how you've handled this or not. Taking a stand against evil is important.
I hope to have some people on from England to talk about this tomorrow, and I want to ask them that question because I think that the average person who lived and grew up in England, that person is most likely, not because of racism, but because of the cowardice now of not admitting there's a problem in the country. I think the people who grew up in England would be willing to stand and fight that battle for the soul of their country if they had a Churchill-style leader, if they had somebody who could articulate it. But nobody in politics is articulating this is the end of the English Empire. This is the end of the Western civilization in Europe and in England if we don't stand now.
And the problem is that the people that will stand up to that and will say that will probably not be good guys. They'll be the ones that are taking advantage of the situation.
Correct.
Immigration's always used throughout history as the linchpin.
As the French president said over the weekend, they will most likely be nationalists. Nationalists here can mean something very different than what it always means in Europe. When you're a nationalist organization over in Europe, that is not going to end well because they don't have the small government alternative.
Did you want to touch on Stanley before we move on?
Yeah, Stanley is. I was not a fan, of comic books growing up, but I had a son, and I wanted him to read as soon as he could, and so I started reading, Spider-Man to him, and I started reading Captain America, and all these great stories, and they're moral stories. They really are. They're just morality. They're morality tales, and they're so strong in their principles, and I just love them. So I became a fan, and now we start going through, all the Marvel universe and all of the movies with Marvel, and I really think Stanley, and I wouldn't put anyone else in this category, but I think just as in, 1966 or 67, when Walt Disney died, that was the end of an era, and imagine an America or the world without Walt Disney, without all of the movies, Mickey Mouse, and Disneyland, Disney World. It'd be a very different place. Imagine America without Captain America in World War II, and Spider-Man, and the Hulk, and all of these stories. I think he was a master storyteller, and the world is a little sadder today with his loss. Luckily, he was so prolific that we'll be seeing stories that he himself worked on for many years to come.
There's such a void of anything original content in Hollywood TV. If you think about it now, like the only thing that I really can't wait for is like a Marvel movie to come out.
Yeah.
All Stan Lee's creations. Like, really, what does Hollywood do now without that content?
I said to my son, we were at one of the Marvel, maybe it was Civil War, I don't remember which one it was. But we left, and I said, wait, I don't understand. And he said, well, let's look it up. So we looked it up online. His storylines are so unbelievably complex and well thought out. I've never seen anything like it. I mean, he and other writers with him, brilliant, just brilliant.
It's sad that in 2018 that this is a controversial statement, but our thoughts and prayers are with his family. Back in a minute. Before we move on, I want to thank our sponsor, My Patriot Supply. Natural disasters can strike at any time, and I think that we know that right now with all of the wildfires going on in California.
Wildfires in California were consuming, what did I say this morning, 80?
I think it was
80.
80 football fields a minute.
Jeez.
Unbelievable.
These things are crazy. And you've seen today, I'm sure, the video of that woman who is, praying for her horses and freaking out, and the dad, this amazing dad that was, had his son or daughter in the back, and he was just trying to stay calm and keep her calm. Amazing. Now these people are out of harm's way. Where do they go? Where are they staying? How are they eating? How are you affording that? Has anybody really thought of that? Mercury One is there, and we're providing meals, hot meals for these people, but I will tell you that the peace of mind that comes from having at least 3 days, 2 weeks, 6 months worth of food, stuff that if you have a wildfire or a hurricane or something, you just throw it in the back of your car because it comes in these easy totes. Throw it in the back of your car, you're out, you don't have to worry about food. That's a huge blessing when crap hits the fan.
Yeah, and with My Patriot Supply, they make it super easy. You can get a 2-week emergency food supply that's breakfast, lunch, and dinner for $75. I mean, $75 for 2 weeks of food. That's something everyone should have. You can go to preparewithnews.com. That's preparewithnews.com. Get your 2-week emergency food supply kit. You never know when you're going to need it.
Does it seem like crap's hitting the fan more often, especially in California?
Yes.
My God.
Literally.
Yeah, literally. Yeah.
The poop.
Certain areas,
There's lots of poop there. Yeah. Stu.
Saturday Night Live. It is not usually funny and not usually giving you anything of value, I would say. I'm not a huge fan at this point. It's hard to watch.
Couldn't tell by that opening
and it's
statement.
just, I mean, I'm a guy who likes the show, generally speaking, as a show in history. Yeah. But, I don't watch it that much anymore.
Clapped her.
Yeah, it's really not going for much. Anyway, we know the story with Pete Davidson, right?
Yes.
He's the guy, he's a comedian who had a line about Dan Crenshaw. He is the veteran who had his eye, he lost his eye to an IED, and he was making fun of him as like a James Bond character in a porn movie or something like that. I don't know. He had a bunch of lines about him, and he got a lot of heat last week about it. I think we talked about it on the show one day. And I absolutely loved his response to it because he was just like, look, Crenshaw's response. He's like, look, I don't think we need to be demanding apologies from everybody. It wasn't a funny joke, but we'll move on with our lives.
In the grand scheme of things, 15 years ago, you would have made that joke.
Yeah, I mean, again, it wasn't even the joke about.
No, I don't mean us. I mean, it wasn't mean-spirited.
Yeah.
It was in poor taste, but people would not have been saying, you're a horrible, despicable human being for that.
It's interesting you make that point, because I think you're right on that, and I don't think people are thinking about it that way. I mean, the joke was only bad because of the context, right? It was only bad because this guy, because of the way he lost his eye, which was our service, and it's like it's because of him. It's not because of the joke. The joke, in and of itself, was not all that horrible. It was just
I don't even know if you could make that joke 15 years ago.
Really?
That seems like it's always been off.
Yeah, no, I think before. I think maybe before.
It's not the joke; it's the target. I guess is what I'm saying.
Before September 11th, I remember. I mean, we made jokes. Remember when Joe Biden said to, I don't remember who it was, but a guy who lost his leg, stand up, Chuck. Oh, dear God.
Yeah.
Okay. It was hysterical.
Yeah.
And we made fun of Joe Biden. Stand up, Chuck. The guy has no legs, and he's in a wheelchair. So we made fun of that in 15 years ago. As long as it's not mean-spirited, I think you could have gotten away with it.
And part of it, too, was Davidson acknowledged he knew how he lost his eye. It wasn't just like a mistake.
And blew it off.
And blew it off. Yeah. And, look, it's he's some liberal comic. But this could have been a big deal about it. So let me give you 2 parts of what happened. Crenshaw goes on Saturday Night Live. And first of all, you get part 1 was kind of an apology from Davidson where he's saying, it was a joke I shouldn't have made. Obviously, I make horrible life decisions all the time. I apologize. And then they bring on Dan Crenshaw. So first of all, Dan gets a chance to take some shots at Davidson as like a free pass. And he pulls it off so brilliantly. He just, great execution of this and in a great spirit. Let's watch that first.
And now, first impressions with Lieutenant Commander Dan Crenshaw.
Thanks, Colin. This is Pete Davidson. He looks like if the meth from Breaking Bad was a person.
Not bad. So there, we're even. All right.
Hold on, well, one more. This is. All right. He looks like a troll doll with a tapeworm.
Yeah, man. All right, that's good. We should wrap this up.
Oh, hold on. No, this is fun. This is fun.
Cool.
Pete looks like Martin Short in the Santa Claus 3. By the way, one of these people was actually good on SNL.
I mean, no, you're right. No, you're not wrong.
It's just solid. I mean, funny and really solid. Well executed. And again, like, you could tell it really legitimately didn't bother him. But it goes to a second part where he kind of gets serious and talks about veterans and everything else. And I want to watch this, and then I want to draw attention to one particular moment here. Watch.
Okay, but seriously, there's a lot of lessons to learn here. Not just that the left and right can still agree on some things, but also this: Americans can forgive one another. We can remember what brings us together as a country and still see the good in each other. This is Veterans Day weekend, which means that it's a good time for every American to connect with a veteran. Maybe say thanks for your service, but I would actually encourage you to say something else. Tell a veteran, never forget. When you say never forget to a veteran, you are implying that, as an American, you are in it with them, not separated by some imaginary barrier between civilians and veterans, but connected together as grateful fellow Americans who will never forget the sacrifices made by veterans past and present, and never forget those we lost on 9/11, heroes like Pete's father. So I'll just say, Pete, never forget.
Never forget.
So great.
So great. So first of all, I just love the idea that we can have a moment like this where, like, people are just like, no big deal, let's blow it off, we're friends. I love that. But the part I really loved about it was, think of Dan Crenshaw in this moment. He's a politician, a couple of days before the election, has every incentive in the world to make a big deal about this and blow up his name, right? He could easily have done that. Instead, he goes on, has a nice moment, but then also directs grace to Pete Davidson while bringing up his father, who was a firefighter and died in 9/11. He brought light to put him in a more positive view of people around the country who might not only see him as someone to yell at because of what he did last week.
Before this, he was probably the most hated guy on TV at that point.
Exactly.
Like, everyone hated him.
And he didn't have to do that. Right. He didn't have to do that. He brought that. He gave him that olive branch. He gave them that lifeline so that people watching that would remember, because Pete Davidson's dad, when he was very young, his father was at 9/11 as a firefighter and died. He was known for a long time as the 9/11 comedian, because he would come out and actually make tasteless jokes about 9/11, despite his fact that his dad died on 9/11. So, like, that is like, he doesn't have to do that. He was able to rise above that moment. That is one of the best segments I've ever seen on Saturday Night Live. One of the best things, especially in this time when everyone makes a big deal about everything, to be able to do that, to show grace, to bring everybody together, that's like a freaking magic trick. I cannot say enough about that segment. And Dan Crenshaw in particular, he did a fantastic job. And it's something I would love to see more of our leaders do more of that, where you have an opportunity for the easy, low-hanging fruit, and you reject it and try to do something better with it. We never see that anymore.
So, like, maybe he read a book by someone who we know, maybe?
Addicted
to Outrage, available now?
Thank you. What's interesting about this is, I will bet you that everyone felt the same way on both sides. Everyone went, wow, that was nice.
It almost felt weird. Like, I forgot that people could do things like that.
And how come nobody is?
Yeah.
How come nobody is?
I think anger sells.
I know, but I will say, with this clip...
Doesn't that piss you off?
It's got something like 5 million views in, like, one day on YouTube. I mean, like, people loved that clip, and they loved it for so many great reasons. It's nice to celebrate something like that every once in a while.
Yeah, we should be celebrating it more often. Back in a minute.
We should get him on.
The Mercury One Ball is coming up. It's this weekend.
It is lots of fun.
Yes, I can't wait.
We have a very exciting announcement to make on Saturday, and we're really thrilled about it. And everybody from the Nazarene Fund is going to be there as well, so if you've been helping out at all, we're going to have an auction, and you can join online, which is remarkable, and you can get a raffle ticket right now. Help us pay the light bills for Mercury One, so every dollar can go to help people like in Florida or California.
Go to mercuryone.org, mercuryone.org, and we will see you guys in overtime and at the gala.
Yes, you could win a new Mercedes.